All right, everyone, we're now going to look at activity 4. So, in this activity, you're going to be looking at the perspective of a volunteer or a potential volunteer for Dr. Reed's mosquito experiments. Before they could participate, volunteers had to agree and sign a consent form, which means they were deciding to participate on their own volition or on their own free will by their own choice. So we're going to look at what are the central ideas in this consent form, or what are the volunteers agreeing to, and what do the details say that they were signing up for. So we're going to think about things like what is the goal of the experiment, how much money would the volunteers receive, what happens if they contract yellow fever, and what conditions does the volunteer agree to in the form. So are there living conditions? Are there eating conditions? Are there relationship conditions? So make sure you read this. You can follow along as I read it to you. The undersigned understands perfectly well that in case of the development of yellow fever in him, that he endangers his life to a certain extent, but it being entirely impossible for him to avoid the infection during his stay on this island. He prefers to take the chance of contracting it intentionally in the belief that he will receive from the same commission, the greatest care and the most skillful medical service. So you're going to need to paraphrase what that means to explain, or parts of this to explain if you, instead of a partner, would agree to it. So we've got different parts of this consent form, and you're going to say each one of these in your own words. This is not a copy and paste scenario. You're going to write it as you understand it, like you're explaining it to somebody maybe much younger than you. So if you had a cousin or brother, sister, someone you knew in kindergarten, how would you explain it to them? And then you would say whether or not you agree. If you don't agree, what would you need to change this to so that you would agree? All right. Make sure you do each box. Remember, if it's a yes here, you don't write anything. If it's a no here, you explain what needs to be changed so that you would agree to it. And then based on how you paraphrase this passage, we're synthesizing and explaining the key risks and rewards that are outlined in this form. So what could happen to you? How could you benefit if you sign this form? On card 2, we're going to dive in a little bit more. So we're going to think about things like the controlling idea, the main idea of this consent form, and we're going to synthesize that a little bit and ask ourselves some questions like, what does it mean to be a volunteer? Why are our volunteers important? And think of the traits to tell me the kind of person that Dr. Reed would want as a volunteer for his experiments. So, what's the main idea, controlling idea of the consent form? Would you sign it? Kind of answered that a little bit on the other chart. And then why or why not would you sign it? You have to include one supporting detail from the consent form. This is an embedded cited detail. Please use your quotations, your punctuation correctly as you write it.